So let's talk a bit more about Cyberpunk 2077. What's up everybody, welcome back to some more Cyberpunk news and gameplay. Today we have quite a bit of information to go over. Of course, if you requested a refund at any point, you should definitely go ahead and check out your emails. I will talk about that in just a little bit. And we also have some news about how the game actually sold despite all of the criticism. And lastly, some details about some of the upcoming patches, AI fixes, the multiplayer, and some other stuff from one of the December meetings with CD Projekt Red. So let's jump right into it, and as always, if you enjoyed this video at any point, it would be super awesome if you also left a like on this video. But let's begin with the Psn refunds. It seems that they have finally landed, and a number of users over on Reddit were able to confirm that Psn of course is finally awarding these refunds. So according to the user Amethyst over on Reddit, just a heads up, it seems that they are processing these right now. He got his today or yesterday, depending when this video comes out, and noticed it was locked in his library, but then when he checked, he went in and uninstalled it completely. But he is planning to actually buy it later on the PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 5 version at the very least. So let me know down below, did you request a refund, and are you planning to get the game again once it's in a proper state, or when you get the new gen of consoles, assuming that you requested a refund on the old gen. And speaking of asking for refunds, another user was able to confirm that if you go through the live chat, you're gonna be able to get a refund on the very same day, but this might be dependent, of course, on your country, so not all countries might have the live chat available. But the surprising piece of news comes from SuperData, which is a company that kinda does this all the time. So they basically release almost monthly and yearly revenue reports and other gaming related reports, including number of sales and other types of estimates. And according to their recent report for December 2020, it seems that Cyberpunk, despite all the trouble it's been into, despite the way it released, and despite all of the criticism, it still managed to sell really well. Like, according to the data right here, it managed to get in a revenue of over 600 million, and this is just a rough estimate, by the way. Of course, CD Projekt Red should come in sometimes this year and release the revenue reports that should shed a bit more light onto that. But that's actually quite surprising, given the fact that the game was literally delisted from the PlayStation Network, given the fact that, yeah, everything that's been happening around it was just like all full-on disaster. I still love the game, by the way, but it's hard to say that the launch wasn't really rough. On top of that, the game was also doing pretty well on Steam. Of course, this is the only official data that we have that we can see in real time. And yeah, this is a single-player game with about a 50-hour long campaign that even after a month still rakes in 130,000 people playing at a 24-hour peak. So that is pretty impressive. It's the only single player game in the top 5 games on Steam at the very least, and yeah, it's like full on multiplayer games over there with long histories, with a huge player base. So once more content comes in, once CDPR comes in with the multiplayer, I reckon it's gonna be even crazier than that. So it might have fallen off quite a bit from the 1 million we had on day 1 and the first week, but again, single player game, 50 to 60 hour campaign on average if you don't do all of the stuff in the game, or 100 plus if you go in for all of it, but that's still over a month from the release of that game. But with that being said and done, let's talk a bit about the future of the game, and we have quite a lot of details from a Q&A session back in December after the game's release. So here we have a pretty lengthy one. I'm only going to go over the more important bits, but it does explain a little bit more why the upper management decided to release the game in this state, and well, what their plan is to regain the players' trust, how much they're focusing their resources on improving the game, and even more so, what's coming next for Cyberpunk 2077. So according to Adam Kaczynski, he mentions that after 3 delays, we as the management board were too focused on releasing the game. We underestimated the scale and complexity of the issues, we ignored the signals about the need for additional time to refine the game on the base last gen consoles. It was the wrong approach and against our business philosophy. On top of that, during the campaign, we showed the game mostly on the PCs, even though saw like the later trailers were also on the PlayStation 4 Pro at some point, but never on the base consoles like the base PS4 and Xbox One. But this caused, according to him, the loss of gamers' trust and the reputation that we've been building through a big part of our lives. That's why our first steps are solely focused on regaining those two things. We are concentrated on fixing Cyberpunk on last-gen consoles. Of course, PC gamers will also be getting regular updates and fixes to improve the game. We will do everything possible to improve that. We stick to our values, and that is actually something that I really wanted to hear. But let's talk a bit about specifics. What are they actually planning to do this? If you're on an old gen of consoles, then rest assured that this is going to be a really big priority right here. So one of the questions was regarding what is CD Projekt Red planning to do with the base consoles. Like, should they not just not release it on the old gen, or maybe just take a little bit more time? Well, here is the answer. So where we want to go with the PlayStation and Xbox, as stated in the statement made public today, or well, back then, we are planning to get the game in a much better shape than it is right now. Of course, some of it already happened in December, as it even implies right here, but come January and February, we're going to see larger improvements, which we've stated already. We have also stated that if your expectation is that the game is going to be equal to, say, next gen or PC in terms of performance, that definitely isn't going to happen. So yeah, this is in mind, of course, with the hardware capabilities of the old gen, especially the base consoles. It's probably not gonna look as good as a maxed out PC or PS5 or Xbox Series X version, but they are aiming for a more stable kind of release. On the same note, one of the leads in the company also went in and explained a little bit further the cost of patching the game. When asked about the cost of patching the game in regards to marketing and developing it in the first place, is irrelevant compared to what we have already spent, so there is no question. We definitely want to fix the game. We made a promise to gamers and we'll be doing everything to stick with it. Now, of course, this is all in relationship to the bugs. This is not the only problem that the game is facing right now. Some quality of life improvements might also be missing in the game. Like, for example, the AI, the poor state it currently is in, is also a major topic of concern. So one of the questions was, are these patches purely focused on performance and fixing bugs, or are you also looking to improve the gameplay in some ways? For example, the AI has been criticized and NPC behavior and whatnot. Whether we're focusing just on technicalities or gameplay elements, things like AI, for example, these are, at least in CDPR's own view, from a production standpoint, AI and NPC behavior fall within the general category of bugs. So if I can give you an answer, he explains, I think it does actually include that as well. Finally, on the subject of DLCs, future content, and the multiplayer, one of the main questions was, I'm thinking forward to your additional content that you're planning to launch over the next 2 or 3 years. How do you feel about your ability to release a couple of DLCs next year, and obviously multiplayer in 2022? Of course, 2022 not being a confirmed date or anything. And the answer was, well, to be honest, it's too early to judge at the moment. Please let us handle the situation, and please let us make some more assessments that's still ahead of us. We don't know yet, and we're now focused on improving Cyberpunk. We'll discuss this early next year in 2021, obviously. Furthermore, they also go in and explain about their initial plans about the multiplayer release date. So we haven't confirmed any dates yet. As we've said before, it's hard to judge right now. We are in an unanticipated situation and we'll have to reassess. This is planned for January. Of course, I think referencing the multiplayer right here, we're now focusing on managing the single player release, working on patches, communication, and as said before, the very beginning of this call, our focus remains on gamers. We'll see about further plans. The direction is obvious to proceed as planned, but we have to sit and discuss, and that will happen, well, apparently soon enough, because it's unaudible right there. And there's a few more talks about it, as a matter of fact, about the multiplayer. It seems that these will eventually arrive. They are splitting some of the teams, but that is a natural part of the process. Like, not all of the development team is going to stay on the same thing forever and ever. They already have branched a few of the teams out. Of course, they also have some teams for the other games, but they also have plans for future content. They didn't go in to fully specify what that is, new games or just stuff for Cyberpunk 2077, but it's safe to assume that there are also teams that are working on future content on Cyberpunk 2077, and there's also ones that are working on fixing the games and getting it in a proper state. And this is kind of it with the Q&A session and the details. Again, if you want to read it more, I'm gonna just post a link down below. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.